Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are so excited for day 3 of the Responsive Nonprofit Summit. We have a rock star panel ahead of time right now. I'm super excited to run around and introduce everyone here. We're going to be talking about AI and the intersection of AI into our nonprofit sector, how we're taking a responsible approach to it. How many times have we talked about AI in the last couple of months and in the past year in our sector? And you're coming in from around the country, around the world to be able to come to this session. Please drop in the chat, share where you're coming in from, as well as this system is really cool because we're going to start talking with our participants. So we want to have questions. If you have any issues, you have any thoughts or you want to talk about, please share it in the chat. I'm going to ask everybody here to share one word on what AI means to you, specifically in the nonprofit space, in your professional career, wherever it might be. But when you think of AI, what is that one word that comes to your mind? And as we start seeing the chat come through, I'm going to start asking our team to introduce themselves. I'm going to ask you guys come off mute or come off camera. Mallory, I'd love to have you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much for having me, Virtuous and everyone. My name is Mallory Erickson. I am one of the co-founders of Fundraising AI. I'm also the host of the podcast, What the Fundraising, and I really work at the intersection of fundraiser enablement and overwhelm. So this conversation around AI is so important because I think it sits right there. It has the potential to really enable us as fundraisers and leaders. And for a lot of people, it's overwhelming them. And so that's why this work is so important to me. And thank you so much for having me.
What is your one word, Mallory?
Ooh, curious.
Curious. Mine is curiosity as well. Yep.
Love that.
Meena.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I am Meena Das. I'm joining from Vancouver, BC. Canada, very beautiful. You're all welcome here. I am the CEO of my company called NamasteData. I have been part of the FAI group for quite a bit of time. I love working with AI. I have worked with algorithms and data for almost 15 years in different capacities, designing them, assessing them, evaluating them with someone else, strategizing about those algorithms in different capacities. So I feel very excited every time I get a chance to sit in a room and talk about AI first thing in the morning as I'm starting my computer. So this is a good day for me on my end. Oh, and Eric, I think you might ask me my word of for this, right? Yeah. I think my word is going to be intentional. I'll choose that.
Intentional. I love it. I love it. Craig.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much, Eric, and everyone at Virtuous for having us. My role inside Microsoft is I work as part of our Tech for Social Impact division. All things serving nonprofits and technology in nonprofits, and a great place in Microsoft to be. I think if I think about and my role in that is as the global leader for our software partnerships, and I'm delighted that Virtuous is one of our software partners. It's a critical part of the Microsoft strategy to, of course, create our own first-party software, and I'm sure many people know and love and perhaps become a little bit frustrated with some of those things like Outlook. But of course, that only takes us so far, and so being able to partner with a great organization like Virtuous to think about where our platform technologies can be used to bring the fantastic capabilities that they do, a really important part of our strategy. And I'm delighted to lead that work, and I'm really excited to speak with everyone today really about the way that people are thinking about AI and what it's going to mean for all of you. I think for me, Eric, the word is exciting, exciting, yeah. And yeah, I'm sure I approach that with a little bit, any excitement is approached with a little bit of trepidation, a bit of underlying worry about what's coming. But I think that's why it's exciting. I have faith in humanity that may be misplaced, that, when these big things come along, we tend to get it right in the end. And I think there's a great deal of excitement as I think about the nonprofit sector, the work that we're all doing, the potential that it has. Yeah, really, really just keen to explore a little bit more today and understand what everyone else is thinking.
I love it, Craig. Thank you. We're glad you guys are here. And then I'm going to ask my friend Justin to wrap us up with our introductions.
Thanks, buddy. Hi, everybody. Justin McCord. It's a privilege to be with you. Very thankful to the Virtuous team and for our attendees to choose this stage because, across the multiple days, I don't know that I've seen a more competitive hour in terms of the other stages, which is not a reason to leave. It's a reason to stay, that you're in the right spot. So I've got the honor and privilege of helping lead RKD Group's go-to-market efforts and how we show up in the nonprofit space as one of the leading providers of solutions and fundraising services for nonprofits in the US and Canada. So a lot of this conversation I'm bringing from the perspective of a service provider and a partner to nonprofits and helping work within their tech stack and bring solutions, including AI solutions. And so my word is antsy. And antsy. And maybe that's a little bit of the West Texas boy in me coming out by saying antsy. But, I think that there is, and even from Meena and Mallory and Craig, like there's this blend of excitement and anxiety. And it's like the night before the first day of school where you can't sleep and you don't know, is it because I'm scared or is it because I'm thrilled? Like those sorts of things and the trial and error that we're facing right now. And so it's a lot, but antsy, that's my word.
I love it, Justin. Justin, you're right on. There's correct for the field out there. We have 5 great stages. We've got Dave Raley on the main stage. We got We Are for Good. We've got Candace Cody over from Community Boost. We have so many great stages. Don't leave. They're all recorded. You can come and watch the recordings later. We have a really good rockstar panel here to talk about AI. But before we get into our brief and our conversation, I just want to go around that horn with you guys. I'm looking at the words that folks are including. They're using unsure, help, uncertainty, motivated, curiosity. We heard innovation. We heard antsy. We heard excitement. We heard antsy. Hearing those words from our audience, what comes to mind? What do you want to share with them about AI? Open up to the group. Whoever wants to jump in.
Okay, I'm gonna take the chance and just jump in because that's my counsel.
Yeah,
like you could stand on the outside of a swimming pool and look at the water and wonder what it would feel like in the water forever, right? So whether or not you take the stairs to get in the pool or you cannonball, I think that now is a moment to just get in the pool.
That's a great analogy, Justin. Mallory, I saw you came off mute.
Yeah, I just also wanted, I love what Justin said. I think that is it at the end of the day. I also just wanted to validate how people are feeling and where they're at, because change is hard. New things are hard. There's a lot of pieces of AI that sort of really naturally trigger some fears inside of us, what we don't understand about it, what we feel like might be outside of our control around it. And so if you are one of the people who shared something like that, I think, first of all, thank you for saying that out loud. I think it's really important that we're talking about those things as a community and we're not just pretending like tech is a silver bullet that we should all just be like, okay, we're all cannonballing in, and to really validate where you're at. And then to just double click on what Justin said, nobody needs to cannonball in. There's lots of different ways to make your way inside that pool that feel good and safe, and take the time you need to feel comfortable.
And I just want to, so I agree entirely. I think it's really well put. And I don't want to extend the metaphor too much, but I think just to bring it to life, if we take this metaphor of a swimming pool, actually, many of us have been inside the swimming pool before. And we may have not even known it, right? We've gone paddling in the paddling pool prior. So AI has already been there for many of us in lots of different ways. And I think the risk that we have at this moment in time is that we're putting this moment on too high of a pedestal that makes us believe that there's this cannonball moment that's required, when actually we've probably been dipping our toes in. If we've been on Uber, if we've gone on Netflix, if we've used any of the consumer products, we'll have been using AI in ways that we might not have understood prior. So I think I just offer that, validation, like Mallory said. I think that what Justin said, this idea that you've got to get in at some point and let's figure out what that looks like, but that we don't have to concern ourselves with this is completely alien to us. Because I think that gives us that opportunity to feel a little bit more comfortable.
Craig, you just laid up a fantastic segue, and I want to, as a former current recovering nonprofit fundraiser, right? Like AI is daunting to all of us. I get it, and I want to lead up into a segue to ask Meena. I want to ask you a question. Can you break down the difference between traditional AI and generative AI? Because to Craig's point, he's right. Like we've been using AI in the nonprofit space for a long time, and I think you can help digest that for our audience here.
Yeah, this is exactly the question I was hoping I don't get. Like, and you're in a class and you're hoping, I hope the teacher doesn't ask me that question of all the questions, but I got it. Can I take it back to what we were just discussing a second ago?
Yeah.
So one of the books that I'm reading right now starts with this one question. So you are not going to a zoo, but you are going to an unarmed safari. What are your feelings? And this author was comparing going to an unarmed safari. You are antsy, you are excited. I'm sure there's nothing to be intentional when you're going on a safari, but we'll take that. You're curious when you are getting into a safari. And this author, he was comparing it to all the feelings that we have with AI. And just to add to everything everybody said, all the feelings that we are having today, they are going to change. As we engage more with it, as we learn more, as we understand more, our feelings are going to change. Today, it might be anxious. Tomorrow, it might be annoyed. The third day, it might be excited. And all of that is okay. Now, to the question that you asked, just defining AI in two parts. Well, AI always existed. There are a lot of variations of it. We use a lot of words around it: machine learning, deep science. For some who are really nerdy, we also go back to using statistics or machine learning. But the point is that there are a lot of different flavors, like predictive analytics. That's one example, right? We have used systems around us that would take a lot of data and would predict for you who's your best next donor. That's one flavor of using machine learning and keep improving that algorithm, and we get closer to the modern AI. And I'm going to use the word modern AI to the version that we have in 2024. Generative AI, on the other hand, doesn't look at doesn't predict for you, say, numbers. It is reading your text, it's learning from your text, and it's generating responses. It's a different than somebody asked me, is it hallucination? It's not hallucination. It's reading from your text, it's learning from your text, and it's bringing something for you. So generative is an example would be ChatGPT. Traditional, and I'm going to equate it with predictive, is going to be your tools that predict something for you on your fundraising metrics, for example, and tell, okay, in projections of next 6 months, this can be something, the average life cycle for this donor. This is the prediction. Those would be the two very concrete examples.
Sorry to put you on the spot. Thank you. Thank you for answering that and outlining the. Yeah, fantastic. I think when you think about AI, there's so many different levels to it, right? Like the walk in or the deep end of the pool. And I think for us as fundraisers, we're scared. The curiosity is the word I chose. And it's curious of is AI the elephant in the room is AI going to take our jobs? Is it going to replace who we are? And I think, Mallory, you're also a recovering fundraiser. And I think you could help define what AI today into our nonprofit space and how it help ours.
Yeah, I think, to Meena's point, there are so many different ways that AI can integrate into our work. And we could spend hours talking about every single part of the fundraising process and all of the kind of different hats that we wear as fundraisers, and where predictive tools make sense, where generative tools make sense. I think where I really like to start this conversation is with nonprofits really analyzing where their particular biggest pain points are around fundraising, and then exploring the types of solutions, some of which include AI, some of which don't, all of which will probably include AI in the not so distant distant future, right? But starting to really like do some solutioning around the particular challenges, the particular problems that you have. Or like something I think about in my business at the moment are like things that I'm not good at and somebody on my team isn't good at, that something like AI can help with, can be either a thought partner around or push me forward. And so I really think about it as like sort of a collaborative partner with a skill set that's really different than me. And so how does it sort of strengthen the work that I do? Those are some of the framings I think about.
Oh, I think so too. I think like the automation component to it, like it'd be able to help enhance our jobs and everything else. The things in the background to do the things we do on a regular basis all the time can be them machine learning as let us go do focus on generosity. Justin, what do you think?
Mallory, I love everything that you just said. So my first job when I was 16, I was a DJ at a small radio station. And when I started, I had 2 record players. I had 2 decks where I played 8 tracks, actual 8 tracks. I had 2 CD players, right? And then there was a board where there were a couple of things in syndication that I would, like Paul Harvey, that I would bring in, right? And so, and look, that's, first of all, it's the best job for a 16-year-old ever.
Right.
That said, by the time I left, we had introduced playlists. Like instead of me having to get up and go get the records, there were these things called playlists. And there was on a computer, there was this list of songs that was pre-populated based off of what records were selling and what artists were hot and those sorts of things. And I remember having the conversation with colleagues at the time who had been at the station much longer than me about how they were afraid that that was going to replace the job of a DJ. And here we are decades later, and you know, DJs' jobs look different, but they're still there, right? And so I think, Mallory, everything that you said is true, and it's about finding what are the tools that are applicable to help you complete your tasks. That was the same thing before, you know, AI took over the zeitgeist as it is today. And so, you know, eliminating, monitoring some of that fear and trepidation into finding the right tools and solutions. We're a 575 person company, and my team is small, and we have we've got a big footprint. And so oftentimes I'll have a team member say, "Hey, I've got this problem. I'm trying to figure out a way to do this." And the answer is, okay, what research have you done? Like, what tools are out there? What tools are available? Let's look at what are the different things that we can use. And we found a handful of different AI applications just with that mindset. So Mallory, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. And I mean, this Rockstar panel, we have people from all different spaces and everything else. And I think it's a great segue to go to an organization that has the tools with Craig from Microsoft. You know, what do you think about the AI and enhancing jobs?
Well, no, thanks. I really agree with the panel here. I think a lens that obviously Microsoft takes on this in terms of working in every industry, in every sector, and in every geography in the world, I probably take it up one level, but I think it helps even at this level to think about how we want to worry or not worry about our jobs. In that Microsoft's strategy is to say that let's not hide away from the fact that this is going to change the labor market. It's going to change the way that we think about work. And that's going to have some implications. And so the topic today is about responsible AI. And I think what Microsoft's doing at a corporate level, and I would suggest that all of us on the call today are thinking about already, is how are we preparing the next jobs and the next things such that the important talent and the important contributions to be made by our human colleagues is recognized and is ready to be recognized and ready to be put to work. And so it's really important. Microsoft's invested in huge skill transfer of skills across all types of workers in every industry and every sector to make sure that people can take advantage of the AI revolution and are not left behind with it. And I think that's incumbent on everybody, Microsoft definitely, but actually everybody at an individual basis, to make sure that wherever they're thinking about using AI, that they're bringing people along on the journey. Because exactly to the point that Justin and Mallory made, this is about augmenting the work of humans. And Satya talks about co-pilots, not as autopilots. And so it's about how do we co-pilot with people, and where there is slight changes in people's roles and what people need to do, how do we think about making sure that we're preparing those people to make the most of AI and whatever the changes are in the roles they want to do. So I think that's a really critical part of the way we think about it.
That's fantastic. Thank you, team, on that. I think we've got some really good questions that are coming out of the chat, and I think it's a good segue into what you just shared, Craig, about the responsible and ethical and where we're going. The whole idea, this conversation, we want to talk about responsible AI, and I think, I don't know if anyone realized that everyone here on this panel is a sponsor, a supporter, part of our advisory council for the Fundraising.ai summit that we have going on here. And then from that, we created a framework that kind of outlined all of the responsible and ethical opportunities leading into AI in our nonprofit sector. Mallory, I'm going to ask you if you can walk through how, as the leader of this sector and this group, to walk through how that framework was created and build out some of those pillars to help nonprofits.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, none of this, I can't proceed without talking about Nathan Chappell, who really was the mastermind, the original creator of Fundraising AI, and really the steward of the framework. So I got involved in Fundraising AI not even a little over a year ago now at this point, when ChatGPT was starting to explode around the sector, and there was we were starting to see this gap between those who were excited about it and those who were anxious about it, without any kind of third party body to sort of step in and navigate the nuance of that space that wasn't a specific tech provider. And so, we gathered people together last year at AFP Icon, had a meeting about it. There were two big priorities that came out of that. One was the creation of a framework that helped guide the important pillars of responsible AI. We've had over 200 individuals and companies pledge around that framework, which they're then responsible to, hold themselves accountable to the principles outlined in there. The link is in the comment for folks to check out.
We're put it up on the screen too.
Okay, amazing.
Yep.
And then the other piece there was around the global summit, was a place to come together, learn, be together in community, recognize that this is a big endeavor to understand, integrate, innovate around AI. I think, to Craig's point, yes, there are all these ways that we have already been using AI. And I think those are really important to recognize, because I think they also start to decrease our fear and start to recognize that this is not this sort of completely obscure thing that we have no idea, what happens when we use it. I also recognize that because of our awareness around AI, we are making more intentional decisions about how and when we adopt additional tools. And so the framework is there to both guide, tech creators around how they think about their technology, really taking these 10 pillars into account. And there's so much content here that I'm not going to run. We'd spend the rest of the time talking about this. But I really encourage people to go and to look at these 10 pillars. If you start to feel overwhelmed, you're like, oh my gosh, how would I even do this? Look, I was the ED of a small nonprofit. I wore 24,000 hats. And I know that if I would have looked at this list, I would have been like, I have no idea how to even do this at my organization. So now I feel even more overwhelmed. So I want to talk to those folks specifically. Ask your tech providers about this. Ask them if they're involved in Fundraising AI. Ask them how they're doing these things. I think a lot of our power as leaders inside the sector is to also hold the tech ecosystem sort of accountable to being aligned on these things. A lot of the comments I'm seeing come in are about how do we protect, donor relationships? How do we ensure sort of authenticity, keep humans centered? All of that, in my opinion, really revolves around how we incorporate the elements of the framework into our own work that we have the capacity to incorporate, and how we encourage others around us, particularly our tech providers, to be doing so as well.
I love it. Thank you, Mallory. Meena, what do you think about our framework? I mean, you're part of the beginning and one of the founding fathers, if you will, of the framework as well. So,
Yeah, I'm actually rewriting some of the principles as we are updating the framework. So this is an interesting point. Can I be a little bit nerdy here and go through
100%.
some stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. We're in.
Thank you.
We're
Thank
the
you.
nonprofit nerds here. Love it.
So the 10 principles, so anybody who's listening here, 10 principles, they are kind of divided into like in three broad buckets: your ethical governance, your social responsibility, and operational excellence. And so all these 10 little points, they fall in somewhere in those buckets. So ethical governance, that's basically asking the question, are we aligned with our legal standards and mission or not? Social responsibility, that includes those points like the data ethics, social impact, sustainability, inclusion, all those points that we have in the framework. That's part of that bucket. And the question associated with that bucket is, are we acting positively with AI towards our social commitments? Operational excellence, that's transparency. Somebody asked here the question, how do we maintain trust with donors, right? That's transparency, piece of that. Explainability, collaboration, all those parts of the framework, that's part of our operations. And the question around that is, are we building the right practices as accessible practices as we are thinking about AI and bringing into our mission? So to add to Mallory's excellent point, how can you get started? Sit with it, talk to this framework, sit with it, read it, see what speaks out to you, see what makes you angry, see what makes you confused, see what makes you want to talk to somebody else who's either part of your team or not part of your team. Talk to the framework. That's really all that is for us to be human. Start communicating with it. And then once you do that, you would eventually realize that you have some of your own actions that you are already taking around the AI systems or data that matches with some of this framework. There are some actions that you can bring into your habits collectively as part of the culture to support this framework. So I guess I would probably just end it that, talk to the framework.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm going to ask Mallory to come back off mute because I see she put a quote in the chat, and I think you want to cover another area, which I think I totally agree with you on this.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I shared that Nathan Chappelle led the creation of this framework with the input of over 90 other thought leaders in this space. And I think he said something like there were around like over 2,000 emails that went back and forth in iteration of this framework, getting feedback, pushing in a lot of different directions. And so I just want to sort of recognize that I think one of the really, really important things about fundraising AI is the community coming together, the ecosystem around this, a lot of tech, quote unquote, competitors sitting side by side, really investing their time and resources in the recognition and need for this to be centered in our space. And so I'm just so grateful for all the people that participate in that. I know Meena was a huge part of that. Eric, you've been really helpful. Justin, you've been really helpful. Microsoft has been huge. So I just wanted to make sure I had said that.
Well, and it's important. I think what's the cool thing about it, I always relate to this fundraising AI framework, is this idea of it's kind of like the Better Business Bureau for AI, right? For nonprofits. Like if you're not signed it, you didn't agree to the framework, you're not helping out. As a nonprofit leader, I probably wouldn't want to work with you. And what's really cool is, yes, you're right, we're all competitors, but like we drop our gloves and we want to work collaboratively to grow the nonprofit industry and help all together. And we had 150 people sign it, and like, you're right. I mean, how many times have we tried to get something accomplished? And you're right, 2,000 emails. That's a lot of edits, a lot of red lines to be able to go through that. Thank you so much for that. Justin, Craig, anything else you want to jump in?
Yeah, Eric, I just, to underscore that, I can't recall a moment where we've seen that in the sector. Yeah. And so being a part of the work of fundraising AI is too important to get wrong. And so would just encourage our audience to check out the resources, study the framework, and, share in our sense of responsibility for adopting it, for, sharing it amongst your colleagues that are not attending today. Sign up for the free virtual global summit coming this fall. Because here's the thing, if we don't set the standard for this, someone will set it for us. And it's too important for us to not get right as a part of it.
And no, I think that's totally right. I think the only thing I'd add is, I mentioned at the top of the call that I had faith in humanity to be able to figure things out and get them right. And this is exactly the reason that I have the faith. And I don't think my naivety is misplaced, that I am naive and my faith is misplaced. Looking at it from a Mycroft point of view, we have a big role to play across the whole world about how this works, but we can only do so much. It takes the bravery and the courage and people stepping out into the breach in every industry, in every sector, in every area to actually make this change. And I think, we're delighted to be, working with Mallory and the team to think about how this really comes through for fundraisers and make sure that AI is used in a really positive way. So couldn't agree anymore.
I mean, there's so much great chat going on right now, and I got all the great questions going through. The one thing that jumps out at me right now, as the most people have been asking a lot in the chat as well as the questions, is, how do you balance the authenticity with our donors and the ethical use of AI? Like, right, what tactical tools can we be able to do to help support them in the chat? Mallory, Meena, Justin, Craig, who wants to jump in?
Can I jump in with an example?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so 2 weeks ago, I met this organization. I'm working with them, who are using AI in a very cool way. They brought two AI tools. I think one of them is Otter. The other one, I'm forgetting the name, but they got two AI tools to hold listening sessions with their community partners. So that includes some of their donor representatives, some of their people who are accessing their programs, some staff members, some board members. They're holding some listening sessions to build their AI values. Can you believe that? And they are using that AI tool to record those interviews, and they're calling it the Library of Truth. And so they are not only discussing their confusion in a recorded but safe way, but they're also leaving it open for anybody else who wants to go and access it. So I found it like a really cool way of bringing that transparency with the donors, letting them know that we are using AI, we want to use AI, we are learning how to use AI, and then including them in that decision making. So I'll give that example.
That's great. That's great. Anyone else? No. Craig, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not a fundraiser, and I never have been in the fundraising space, so I wouldn't pretend to know, how to maintain authenticity even without AI. So I think that's an important thing to say. But I think Meena's given us a great example, I think, of where bringing people into the use of AI and so that it empowers them I think is just a critical part of it. And as well as what Mallory was talking about around that transparency and making sure that we bring clarity to those that we're working on behalf of and working for, that those things are really, really clear. So I don't know if I've got anything to say on fundraising specifically, having not done that really important and difficult job. But I do think that the principles of inclusivity and of transparency are critical if you're trying to maintain authenticity and trust when you're using any technology.
I love that. And maybe, one of the other things, I don't know, this might be a little controversial for me to say, but I also want, I feel the pressure that nonprofit fundraisers are putting on themselves around this question, and where I feel like they are like, okay, we had generative AI help us write this appeal. Do we have to say it? And I'm like, well, if you were to have hired a consultant who wrote that appeal, did you feel like you had to say it then? Like, I think there's a lot of ways that we have paid for services that have done some of the work that generative AI does, and we haven't felt like we need to disclose that. Now, it's a different question around like, is it better to be paying people in the ecosystem than using generative AI? That's a different question. But what I'm talking about here is sort of the pressure we're putting on ourselves to disclose things that we didn't do our own selves, when there have been a lot of examples in the past and ways in which we've done this historically that we've never disclosed. So I think it's really important that like we are being our authentic selves when we're fundraising, that we're not misrepresenting anything that we're doing or how something was created. Or for example, if you're using a simulated reality to help depict what happens inside a program, being really clear that that's not an actual video or that's not a, specific story. Like, I think there's a lot of ways where like that transparency piece, maintains that connection and that authenticity. And I don't want people to be so impossibly hard on themselves in ways related to technology that we haven't been in other ways.
So true. And it's interesting. I'm seeing a question in the chat all about the authenticity and the data and using ChatGPT, in taking a data and uploading it into the system. And is ChatGPT listening to us? And as a fundraiser, I would probably use ChatGPT to utilize for grant writing or email writing. And to your point, Mallory, take it another step further and make it authentic, right? Like edit it down and make it my own voice, my organization's voice. Clay Buck is in the room, guys, and he responded to that question. Hey, Clay, he 100% agree. Do not upload your data list to it because of security and data health and PHI and all those different information. If you want to use it, everyone here on the framework, it's the technology platforms. We can do this inside our own systems, and it's secure and it's safe and it's authentic. So just wanted to say that as a former healthcare fundraiser. Mallory, what do you think? You look like you're going to say something.
Oh, no. I was just excited that Clay was here.
Oh, I love it. What other questions do you guys have out there in the space?
Hey, Eric, on that point, recently, Shannon McCracken from the Nonprofit Alliance joined the advisory council for Fundraising.ai. And just another testament to taking this sort of thing seriously, because there's the AI conversation, and sometimes, Meena, I feel like we lose the thread between AI and like LLMs and data when like they're so interconnected, but somehow we lose that thread. And so, there's the aspect of taking seriously the data inputs that we're using around AI and representing our collective data interests in the nonprofit sector. That is certainly crucial for this work and this topic.
So true. So true. Thank you, Justin. The next question I have on here is I'm looking through the questions in the chat, is talking about the level. Where is it? I just had it. I'm concerned about DEI with using AI. Any thoughts around that? Mallory, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a really big question. And I think something we're thinking about in terms of how to incorporate this into the summit in a really sort of actionable and clear way. And so I'd also encourage, if you have some very specific DEI concerns, I'd love to know the really like specific questions people are asking there, because I think there's actually a really big range of potential concerns related to DEI. One, I think Meena will have some great insight here as well. One of the things I wanted to highlight is that, yes, the biases that we hold that already exist in our data can often get perpetuated by technology, right? And so I think this is a place we have to be really careful. And one of my big concerns here is that, when we have technology often becomes more of like the haves and have-nots, and it can widen a lot of inequities and gaps around who has access to certain things. And when that comes to AI, the additional implications there are that models and data sets are trained on that subset of the AI, which then further sort of can create more inequities and perpetuate stereotypes and biases and all of these things, right? So one other resource I just wanted to like point out to folks before I pass it to Meena, who really is going to have the better wisdom here, is the work that's happening over at Giving Tuesday around the Generosity AI Working Group. They have created, also with the support of Microsoft, and I think a lot of folks here are involved in that as well, they have created some opportunities for people to put problems forward, and then they have volunteer developers who help solve some of those problems. And I think one of the reasons why this is really important is because the goal is to create more equity in access, both in tool creation, but also integration of that data into how we're thinking about the application of AI in the sector. So I'm going to drop that link in the comments, and then Meena, you can say the much wiser thing.
Mallory, thank you. You're going to get a love note for saying that, but it's not going to be wiser. I honest. I am not going to give a long answer because I usually write the long answers in my 2,000-word newsletters. I will instead leave one example, a fantastic example of a nonprofit who are using AI in a very cool way, which is they're using virtual reality. And so this was a nonprofit who's bringing virtual reality and artificial intelligence together to create products that then they take it to prisons for women who are going to be out of the prisons in the next 6 months, to train them on how to drive cars and become better vocational trainers in becoming mechanics. And so they're using virtual reality for that. They're bringing their donors in that conversation again, how they are building this product. They collect data how these women are getting trained on these VR systems and AI systems, and they're collecting that data, which includes a lot of identity data, by the way. They're not placing it in algorithms, but they're using it. To Mallory's point, there are a lot of ways biases can come into the systems. It's your data, it's what algorithms you place it through, what is coming out in the output, who's interpreting it, how it is being interpreted, what strategies you are creating out of it. And this particular organization is being so intentional, not just in terms of the data that they're collecting, but what's coming out of those VR systems. And it's really cool. So if you're interested, I would be happy to find out the links for it and share it. But I would give it back to Eric for asking wiser questions and for more wiser answers.
Well, this has been fantastic. We've got 3 minutes left. I want to ask all the questions. Folks, Kelly Cristaldi on our team has posted everyone's login information or contact information in the chat, so we can ask questions, keep this conversation going beyond it. But I just want to ask one last question to see if we can go around the horn and close this out of, what recommendation do you have to give to our nonprofit leaders that are here, that want to learn, that want to lean into responsible AI for their own individual nonprofits? Justin, I'm going to lean in with you first, if you don't mind answering.
Yeah, I think falling in love with the problem is my answer. So fall in love with the problem that you're trying to solve. Don't be overwhelmed. Just fall in love with the problem that you're trying to solve. Start there and identify. For my more technical friends, they would call it a use case, right? And so fall in love with that problem. And my esteemed co-panelists here are very wise and full of resources to help answer those questions and help support you in those use cases. And so, but I think being very acute about the problems that we're trying to solve with AI is going to help us move the needle away from being antsy.
I love it. Craig?
I love it. I love that. I think it's the biggest challenge that people face when they decided to make the journey. Justin's made the right point. They try and their expanse is way too wide, and then it becomes overwhelming. So I think it's great advice. Look, I think for me, recognizing everything that we've said about the nervousness, the anxiety, all of that stuff, is don't let fear control us. I think the opportunity to do so much good in the world, in this place specifically around fundraising, is absolutely there for us to go and embrace. Do we proceed with caution? Do we make sure that we're diligent? Do we make sure that we check? Absolutely. Do we make sure that we work with Mallory and the team on the framework and take the framework and build that into everything that we do? Absolutely. But if fear gets ahead of us, we're going to leave so much on the table for all of the people that you work so hard to look after. to deliver value to. And, I just think there will unfortunately be examples of places where this isn't used in the right way and it won't be used in the right way. But I'd ask you to be generous with your understanding of it, early development technology. Understand that, there's always examples of things going wrong in the world that we wish wouldn't have happened, and really try and lean into this with the caution, with the diligence, and think about all the fantastic impact that we can have together if we use AI in the way that it can be used.
That is amazing. We appreciate that. Meena, what charge do you want to give to nonprofit leaders? And I also want you to address the application. There was a question in the chat about which application that was for the prison, the virtual reality story.
Absolutely. The technology is called virtual reality. They're partnering with Meta on building those technologies around virtual reality. My last point would be for nonprofits would be imagine. Imagination is the piece which we are so good at as humans. I can imagine and say 50 years from now, we are going to have flying cars, and I would fly from here to downtown Vancouver in 6 minutes. That's imagination, and we can do that. And I want us to imagine, listen and imagine. What does your communities need? What kind of future do you want to live in? And the better we get at imagination, the better we get at hoping, the better solutions we build in our AI systems. I'm probably going to leave it at that.
Imagine. I love that so much. And yeah, we're going to have flying cars in 50 years. We are 100%. I'm with you on that. Mallory, what do you think?
My last piece is just please participate in this conversation with us. Like wherever you're at right now, how fundraising AI moves forward, how the tech moves forward, our participation right now at this moment, the questions we ask, the fears we voice, the opportunities we create, the curiosity we bring, that is going to make the tech better. It's going to make our sector better, and it's going to make your organization and your work better. And we need you to be a part of this conversation and to be helping move it forward with who you are and the use cases that you're looking to integrate these into. So thank you for being a part of this session. And I really just want to invite you to be a part of the community and the conversation.
Team, we did it. 45 minutes, rockstar panel, all things responsible AI, big words. I see, Tiffany here. Thank you. It already lessened my anxiety. I think we've accomplished the first step. Thank you, friends, for being here. We had 5 amazing stages to choose from, and we're grateful for you to come to our stage, but you can go get those recordings later. Today, they're out there. Go visit the Microsoft Sponsor Hub. Go visit our exhibitors, all our sponsors. Make this free and accessible for all of you, and be able to, focus on nonprofit learning. We have 15-minute break. Go get some water. Go find the restroom. Get recharged. We'll see you back here in 10 minutes or at 10 o'clock at the top of the hour for our next session. Thanks so much, team. Thanks, Rockstar panel.